And welcome to the City of Oxnard Planning Commission regular meeting for Thursday, March 17th, 2022. We're beginning at 6:02. A quick housekeeping item. We will continue to follow Assembly Bill 361, where members of the commission, public, and staff will be participating via teleconference. As shown on the agenda and online, please email all written public comments to planning@oxnard.org. Those wishing to speak may visit oxnard.org/city-meetings to fill out the speaker form or by calling 805-385-7878 by 3 p.m. the day of the meeting. During the meeting, an opportunity will be given to the public for additional members to participate and provide comments after each item. Members of the public are requested to view the call-in number, meeting ID, and passcode at the bottom of your screen to join the meeting. When participating in the meeting, please keep your microphone's muted until your turn to speak. Because the meeting is electronic, all votes will be done by roll call. Lastly, for presenters, when needing to advance to the next slide, please clearly state next slide. And with that, we'll move to our Madam Secretary to establish our quorum.
Chair Chavez,
Here.
Vice Chair Wejo,
Here.
Commissioner Connolly,
Here.
Commissioner Dr. Lopez,
Here.
Commissioner Meyer,
Here.
Commissioner Nash,
Here.
Commissioner Sanchez.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. We'll go ahead and proceed to our next item on our agenda, which is our Pledge of Allegiance. Mr. Kolwitz, would you mind leading us this evening?
Would be my honor. So if everyone can stand as you are able and repeat with me.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you for that. We'll now move to public comments for items not on the agenda. Members of the public wishing to address the Planning Commission regarding any item not on the agenda, but within the subject matter jurisdiction of the commission may do so at this time. However, the commission cannot take action on any items presented during the public comments and will be referred to our commission secretary. All public comment speakers will have 3 minutes. Madam Secretary, just to confirm, we did not have anyone sign up.
That's correct.
Okay. So with that, we'll follow AB 361. And if any additional members of the public wish to participate for items not on the agenda, may view the bottom of their screen for the call-in, meeting ID, and passcode. At this time, we'll go ahead and move to our consent agenda. Adoption of the resolution reauthorizing remote teleconference meetings of the Planning Commission for the City of Oxnard. That we have to do this every 30 days. Mr. Rosal, did you want to add anything to that?
No, at this time, we recommend approval of it, but it's very likely we will not be readopting it, but we'll need to see how that plays out.
Thank you. If I can get a motion for approval.
So move.
It was moved by Commissioner Sanchez, second by Commissioner Connolly. Any discussion? Madam Secretary, can we have a roll call, please?
Commissioner Sanchez,
Yes.
Commissioner Connolly,
Yes.
Vice Chair Wejo,
Aye.
Commissioner Dr. Lopez,
Aye.
Commissioner Meyer,
Yes.
Commissioner Nash.
And if I could get a clarification from Chair Chavez, since we don't have a raise hand function here live, how do you want us to get your attention and get called on?
Let's finish the vote and then
Okay.
I'll address that.
Thank you.
Chair Chavez,
Aye.
motion passes.
Thank you. I was actually thinking about that over here, trying to figure out on how we do that. So I think just a simple raise hand will do just fine. And then I'll make sure to monitor the screen as well, since we have commissioners participating virtually as well. So if I don't see you, just say, Chair, something get my attention.
And staff will be here to give the assist as well.
I appreciate that. Thank you. So we're within the last minute. Mr. Colwitz, is there any announcements that the commission should be aware of going into tonight's agenda?
As far as tonight's agenda, no, but since we have 40 seconds left, this is just a quick reminder to all planning commissioners that your Form 700, the Statement of Economic Interest, is due by April 1st. If you haven't already filled that out to be in compliance with the Fair Political Practices Commission, please do so. It's best to avoid any contact by them after the fact. If you have questions about that, staff is actually not really able to provide guidance on that, but you have to call up that organization directly, is my general comment that I'll provide to all of you. So thank you in advance for having it for that.
Chair Chavez,
Yes, go ahead.
question to Mr. Kowitz. Do you have the list of people, or that's just something proactive that we need to do and doesn't relate to the planning commission? I mean, it does, but that the updates aren't filtered to the planning commission staff.
It's not something that I generate. It's through an automatic system that through the city clerk's office. If you have not received an email already, we need to get you in touch with them because it is an automatically generated document.
Yes, no, just confirming. I did, and I believe I did, but it's been a couple of months. So I'll follow up with the city clerk. Thank you very much, Mr. Kowitz.
You're welcome.
Madam Secretary, did we have any additional speakers?
No, we don't.
Thank you. So we'll go ahead and move to our next item, which is our ex parte declarations for public hearing items. Vice Chair Rejo.
None, Chair Chavez.
Thank you. Commissioner Connolly.
None, Chair.
Thank you. Commissioner Dr. Lopez.
None, thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Meyer.
None, thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Nash.
None, thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Sanchez.
None, thank you.
Thank you. And I only had conversations with Ms. Arnett for the presentation. So we'll go ahead and move to our public hearing item, which is item F1. Project name is the 2030 General Plan and Local Coastal Plan Conformity Determination for the City of Oxnard Capital Improvement Project CIP fiscal year 2022 to 2027. The Planning Commission will review the CIP for fiscal year 2022 to 27 to confirm it is in conformance with the City of Oxnard 2030 General Plan and relevant coastal land use plan policies pursuant to Section 65401 of the Government Code. The CIP includes a range of roadway improvements, maintenance of public facilities, stormwater drainage improvements, and other municipal MISC projects. The whole of the proposed CIP projects are located throughout the City of Oxnard and vary in scope and funding. This is filed by the City of Oxnard Public Works Department here in the City of Oxnard, and our city staff person is Tatiana Arnott, and city engineer, and Mr. Scott Colwitz, Planning and Environmental Services Manager. The recommendation that the Planning Commission find the capital improvement program projects for fiscal year 22 to 27 is not a project under the California Environmental Quality Act pursuant to Section 15601 B3 and 15378 B4, and adopt a resolution 2022-XX finding that the proposed CIP projects for fiscal year 2022 to 27 are in conformance with the City of Oxnard 2030 General Plan and relevant to the coastal land use plan policies pursuant to Section 65401 of the Government Code. As a reminder to my colleagues and the public, a pre-recorded presentation is available on the city's YouTube channel. And with that, we'll go to our city staff if they wish to provide any additional information.
Chair Chavez, I'm going to jump in here first. Thank you for reading the rather long agenda item. Thank you. After I speak, I'll turn it over to Tatiana Arnott to see if she has any additional comments to provide. I just wanted to provide a little bit of a framework for what we're here tonight. So the planning commission were reviewing new projects which have been added to the capital improvement program for the city, which is a document that basically looks at a 5-year period to determine what sort of public works are we going to be doing to improve the city in all sorts of different categories. And ultimately, the question before the planning commission is, are the projects which are proposed consistent with both the general plan as well as the local coastal plan? It's possible that we have projects which are compatible with more than one policy. So our documents, we had just identified one, but there are others that might be relevant. We don't need to identify every single general plan policy. We just need to identify that it's not in conflict with any, if you will. And the presentation that we put together and the staff report we put together focuses on just the new ones that have been added, the 31 that have been added. But the capital improvement program that will ultimately be provided to the city council will be the full program, if you will. And the city council is the one that gets to make the decisions about any sort of priorities for which project happens in this initial phase versus later years, if you will. So that's my quick introduction. But if I could turn it back over to Tatiana to see if there's anything else she wants to add, that'd be great.
Thank you, Scott. So I have nothing more to add on that end. I just want to take this opportunity to thank the staff here in the city of Oxnard who has been working incredibly hard on this CIP, and not just this one that we're pushing forward for the next 5 years, but all of the work that they've been doing over the past few years, especially since the passing of Measure E. And I hope that everybody has noticed that there's a lot of work happening out in our streets. And so I just like to take this time to make that acknowledgement to staff and thank them all for their hard work.
Thank you for that. Commissioners, is there any questions for staff at this time? Commissioner Meyer.
Thank you, Chair Chavez. My only question at this time is actually about something that I didn't see. And maybe I just could get an update from somebody who knows. What's the status of the Performing Arts Center? I remember it was a discussed before Measure E and everything that, oh, we might have to stop servicing it. You know, the budget can't handle it. And I hadn't really heard what happened since then.
I could speak to that. So right now there are a few things actually happening at the Performing Arts Center. So we are actually conducting a seismic analysis of the facility to understand if there's any sort of seismic retrofits that need to be, or so if it needs to be improved upon from a seismic standpoint. That is in progress right now. I do have a draft that is in review right now. We also actually have simultaneously plans that have been produced to replace the roofs over the rental spaces. And should the seismic study basically tell us that we should move forward with improvements with the facility, we would be putting that out to bid in the next few months. And separately, there will be an item coming before council on the 29th of this month, actually, where we're applying for a grant to do improvements to the Performing Arts Center.
Wonderful. Thank you, Ms. Arnell.
Any additional questions? Commissioner Nash.
Hi, and could you pronounce your name for me so I don't totally butcher it?
No, you're good. It's Tatiana Arnaud.
Okay. Arnaud is very easy. Thank you. Glad it's not more complicated than that. Otherwise, I'd be lost.
No worries.
So the city is in the process of developing a climate action plan to incorporate into its general plan. Is this correct?
That's correct.
So in reading this staff report, I noticed that there was really no mention of the impending climate action plan. And in fact, we only had one item that could even be remotely considered dealing with climate action, and that is the vehicle charging stations. So what is our place as planning commissioners? And this would probably go to Scott also, because planning, I mean, that's in our title, right? Planning. I mean, we need to anticipate and, guide and incorporate what we want to do in with the city and in any plans and any projects that come before us. So, Mr. Klowitz, could you give me a general, 30,000-foot view of how I am supposed to deal with that. I don't know how my other commissioners feel. I certainly know how I feel about climate change and climate action plan.
Okay, absolutely happy to jump in here. So let me start off by answering it sort of indirectly, and then I'll get into it. So the question that's before the Planning Commission tonight is the CIP that's being proposed, the new projects in the CIP that are being proposed, consistent with the existing general plan that we have today and the existing LCP? So in that context, we don't get into any sort of explicit climate action policies because we don't have any that are currently adopted. That said, we are working on a climate action plan that'll be brought forward to the Planning Commission and City Council for adoption. Kathleen Mallory in the Community Development Department is the one who's leading that charge. Once that document is adopted, there will be policy language as part of the climate action plan. And the anticipation is when we go through the general plan update effort, so we'll move from a 2030 general plan to a 20XX plan for whatever timeframe that has. I would anticipate that there are going to be climate action related policies in that as well. And that's where we start getting that crossover of the various documents.
Okay, thank you for that. I just find it very unfortunate. I'm trying to, I'll save that for deliberation. Thank you. That's all. Thank you.
Any additional questions from the commission? I just had one quick thing. When I was looking at the projects, and I'm curious in regards to how they're placed in their specific categories. And looking at, what page is this? This is page 1, and it's the attachment A, the chart listing of the new projects. One of them under the plan goal CD3, and the plan description says a city of stable, safe, attractive, and revitalized neighborhoods with adequate parks, schools, infrastructure, and community identity and pride. The only one that stood out to me that doesn't really fit that bill was the River Ridge Golf Course. It says that the purpose and the need is that the River Ridge Golf Course event spaces are in need of upgrades in order to increase revenue generation opportunities. It is my opinion that I believe that one should actually be in ICS1, which is the next category, because the plan description says provisions of adequate facilities and services that maintain service levels with adequate funding. Is that within our scope? And then I don't want to get too technical with it, but is that within our scope to move that one over into the other group, or is there specific funding that goes to each category?
Kathleen, I'll go ahead and jump into that one if you want.
Please do.
So I'll start with the later, then move to the former. Yes, it's absolutely within the Planning Commission scope. If you think there's a policy that might be better suited, we can move that around. That's a non-issue. In terms of how did we think that fit into that particular category, it was a mixture between safe sort of environment, adequate infrastructure, those type of words. A fair argument could be made for either of those categories. And that's, as we were looking at this and part of the introduction that it could be going into multiple categories, multiple policies, we simply picked one. But if Planning Commission feels more comfortable with another one, that's absolutely within your right to go ahead and move it.
I appreciate that.
No,
Tough-
I completely agree with what Mr. Colwitz just said.
And again, I understand based off of the presentation and through conversations and even just the brief description right now that many of these projects can fit in 2, 3, or maybe all of the projects categories. But it's just this one stood out to me because I believe when we think of adequate parks, schools, infrastructure, and community identity and pride, many can argue, well, how does generating revenue for a particular location creating that identity and pride? So that would just be my recommendation to my commissioners, that when we look for a motion, whether to approve or deny, if this conforms or not, that we look to move that one into the next category, the ICS 1, which is the Infrastructure and Community Services category. Is there any additional questions from the commission? If not, we'll go ahead and open the public hearing for this item. Madam Secretary, just to confirm, we did not have anybody sign up this evening.
That's correct.
Okay, so then we'll go ahead and do AB 361 and be time for 3 minutes. Thank you. All right, Madam Secretary, did we have any additional speakers?
No, we don't.
Thank you. Commissioners, so we'll go ahead and close that public comments for this item. And commissioners, we'll go ahead and move into deliberations for this item. Vice Chair Rejo.
Thank you, Chair Chavez. So I'd just like to say at the outset that I don't find a reason why we couldn't proceed with the recommended action. I'd like to add, since it is going to the City Council, that looking at all of them, but in particular, items 24 through 30, I know it's weird and awkward for the city to try to show how, with wastewater, it's very important, but sometimes the most important things are not easily able to be seen by the public unless something goes wrong. And since we're fixing something with this, and there have been measures in this regards to try to fix it, I recommend that the City Council and the staff find new innovative ways, or to essentially copy ways from other cities to make sure that the residents know this. As someone who worked in the city, this was very hard to show that it is an important part of being in a city. that we can hold our own in regards to this. And so that's all, Chair Chavez. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Commissioner Meyer.
Thank you, Chair. If there was nothing further, I'm ready to put forward a motion to approve the recommendation with the added change of the category of the item that you mentioned, ridge facilities.
Okay. Commissioner Connolly.
I am going to second, but I chimed in real quick to say that we needed a motion on the table before discussion. So I'll second.
I'm sorry, can you repeat that again?
Sorry, I talk fast. I raised my hand quickly because I thought that we needed a motion on the table before discussion. So I will second Commissioner Meyer's motion.
Okay, it's been moved in second for the recommended action with the change for the River Ridge Golf Course moving from category CD3 to ICS1. Discussion, Commissioner Nash.
Thank you, Chair Chavez. So I want to touch briefly on my earlier comments about the climate action plan specifically. In reviewing these projects, the vast majority of them, I could incorporate design features that would address climate action, specifically canopy solar over a lot of the physical spaces. I don't need to remind anyone, but climate change is real. We look at this, just what's happened in January, February, and now March, when we've had no rain. This is incredible. And is this being addressed in the water production wells? I don't know. I don't know exactly how we could address it, but it just seems like when we're talking about a 5-year plan, and we're not talking about climate change or the climate action plan, it just seems so short-sighted, and it really bothers me on a planning level that when we do get around to addressing these issues, it'll be too late because we'll be told, oh, well, you've already approved this project. The time to act is now. I mean, I just can't stress that enough. And I hope my commissioners take to heart what I'm saying. I'm not asking that we reject this this proposal tonight. Although I think I will probably vote against it just as a symbolic vote. So, let's keep climate change at the forefront, because things are happening, and they're going to start happening faster than we can anticipate. So we really have to plan, and we really have to plan now. So thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Nash. Any additional discussion? Commissioner Dr. Lopez.
I certainly want to echo Commissioner Nash's comments around the urgency around climate and planning for it. I only minor disagree with one thing, that the time to act, is now, but many would argue that the time to act was years or decades ago. To have substantive, effect in countering, these changes. Second, I wanted to echo also the comments of Ms. Arnaud in thanking not only you, who really helped usher the project, collaborating with throughout the city to collect all this information. It really is a labor of love. It's very cumbersome, to certainly reach every corner, every pocket, every department throughout the city, and to keep it on task, and then bring forth such a a large item. Very much appreciate your efforts. And like you said, everyone in the city who played a part in bringing it to this part. I remember the original CIP and how substantive of a report that was. And it was exciting to see a lot of the investments, a lot of the improvements, a lot of the priorities that the city had identified. For the public, it's important to remember that things wear down in time. With time, things break down, things take resources. At times, if there is a lack of resources, things are deferred. And certainly over the last 20 years, there's been time and again where the city hasn't been in a position to address some of these critical, I'll say, projects. One that comes to mind certainly in the last 10 years is the wastewater project and how far that came in deteriorating and at times barely avoiding a larger crisis or emergency. And so for the public, I certainly want to encourage you all to take some time to examine the report of this item here tonight, because there are really projects throughout the city. Some of the ones that stood out for me are certainly the park improvements and it's parks throughout the city, Colonia Park, Durley Park, Garden City Acres Park in the Cypress neighborhood, and others. There's a new skate park in the east part of town. There are protected bike lanes, the sidewalk and street repairs, which you've mentioned that a lot of us see, as well as important building structural upgrades. I mentioned the wastewater plant improvements, water storage facility, and then the electric vehicle charging stations. Just something to kind of just put out there for staff is you mentioned earlier some of the grants that the city has gone after, particularly for our parks. You mentioned the city actively working and seeking a grant for the Performing Arts Center. One of the items on here today is the electric vehicle charging stations. And so, there is money and resources from the federal government. I think that it was just announced in the last 48 hours that they're going to be investing in creating 500,000 charging stations throughout the country. And so I would certainly just encourage staff, to get in contact with our congressional representatives to try and see if there's any way we can try and bring some of that money or those resources here to Oxnard. I think that we would be a very certainly viable and competitive community because of our location and certainly just our community and its needs. And so wanted to recognize, like I said, the city for all their work and efforts, and I too am prepared to support the project here tonight.
Thank you, Commissioner Dr. Lopez. Commissioner Connolly.
Chair, please correct me if this should go in commissioner comments or in this forum, but I have I have one advocacy group that I'd like to mention in regards to climate control. Is this the time?
Commissioner Conley, if you are able to connect it to this item, the deliberations are yours.
Perfect. So the Smart Coast California is a local advocacy group that is advocating for climate challenges and stuff like that. They're actually taking on the Coastal Commission. And I just wanted to make all of the commissioners aware of this advocacy group because I fully support them. And I recommend not only the commissioners to look into what they're doing, but also the public. And their mission statement is advocating for the collaborative stewardship of the coast, a special place where the land and water meet, dedicated to community sustainability, property rights, and the environment. So if you have time, please look up Smart Coast California, because I think they're doing basically what we're talking about right now.
Thank you, Commissioner Connolly. Mr. Kowitz.
Yeah, Chair Chavez, I'm not trying to interrupt the deliberations. It's not a typical thing for us to do. I just want to make a very brief comment in terms of where the conversation is right now. While the climate action plan is not an adopted policy or not even released in a draft form at this point, the city, we have an interest in trying to approve projects which are energy efficient and water efficient. And I know that our Public Works Department is looking at that and pushing forward because it's smart when it comes right down to it. And so I just wanted to pause to say that it's not lost on us at all. And Tatiana, I don't know if there's anything else that you wanted to add to that about any of these projects or just in general philosophy of Public Works one way or another. If you're interested, the floor is yours. If not, I'll gladly turn over the deliberations back to the Planning Commission.
And would have been approved. And there will likely be a series of projects that result out of that policy. We need the policies to be established and then we can produce projects that would come out of that. So hopefully that helps at least answer some of those questions, but we do anticipate that that's coming.
Thank you. Any additional deliberations on the motion? I'll just say real quick that I appreciate staff bringing this to us, their hard work in this, echoing what Ms. Arnout said in regards to multiple departments, multiple city employees coming together on these projects. These projects are important. They outline what our next 5 years are going to look like. And each one of these projects help contribute to our community in improving it and making it better than it was just a few years ago. We understand that a pandemic did rock our communities across the world, but we also understand that we have to be proactive, and our city staff is definitely being proactive when it is developing these plans, deciding which projects are reasonable to be attained. And a lot of it's also grant funding sources that are what's out there at that time. And Commissioner Nash, you know as well as I know that the CIP list, it's as long as it's there, then we can move forward with it. If it's not there, then it's a little bit challenging to try to get the project completed. So this is just, and Ms. Arnout, correct me if I'm wrong, but this is more of a placeholder until more grant funding comes in for particular projects so that we can actually execute them, correct?
That's correct.
All right. With that, again, I appreciate all of the work. It's a good list. I look forward to future CIP lists that come up. And yes, I completely agree. As many are aware, I sit on the county's Climate Emergency Council, and climate emergency, it's a serious thing. But I also know that we are going through the process of a CAP program, and hopefully we'll be able to hear, even if it's just a brief update from Ms. Mallory, as far as the progress on that. So that we can see where it's at so that we don't feel like it's lost. Is there any additional deliberations on this motion? Seeing and hearing none, Madam Secretary, can we have a roll call, please?
Commissioner Meyer,
Yes.
Commissioner Connolly,
Yes.
Vice Chair Ovejo,
Aye.
Commissioner Lopez,
Aye.
Commissioner Nash,
Aye on the first question, no on the second. And I want the recording secretary to show that my no vote is based on my unhappiness with staff not anticipating.
Point of order, Chair.
Vice Chair.
I request that a motion to divide the question is in order, given the comments of Commissioner Nash. I realize we're under voting right now, and so since voting has not been finalized, I would suggest to the chair to grant my motion, or at least put my motion on the table to divide the question, to allow Commissioner Nash to separate his votes in regards to the motion on the table.
Thank you, Vice Chair. Mr. Colwitz.
Chair Chavez, we can in effect do it administratively. And as we write up the minutes, just show that the vote had happened in that way, which would clearly show Commissioner Nash is in support of the CEQA recommendation. And then provides his no vote specifically on the CIP list relative to climate action consideration.
Thank you, Mr. Colwitz, and thank you, Chair Chavez. If there's no other objection from any of my fellow commissioners, I don't object to that explanation by Mr. Colwitz. Thank you very much.
Seeing and hearing no objections, we'll continue with the vote. Madam Secretary?
Commissioner Sanchez,
Yes.
Chair Chavez,
Aye.
motion passes.
Thank you. And thank you, Ms. Arnoot, and thank you to city staff that works on this project. We'll proceed to our next item, study sessions and reports. Nothing's listed. Planning Commission business. Commissioners, any business to bring before the commission? Vice Chair Rejo.
Thank you, Chair Chavez. I would just like all of the public to know that I'm sure you're getting advertisements, and there has been correspondence from the county that elections are coming up. So please register to vote if you haven't. It looks like, at least in my initial research, for the first time, there are 3 incumbents not running for county-wide offices: clerk, recorder, assessor, and tax collector. I'm not sure if Chair Chavez was going to point this out, but kudos to him for already conducting an interview of one of the candidates for one of the county-wide offices. For us in the city of Oxnard, we don't have any county supervisor to vote in the 2022 election in 1, 2, or 3. And so don't just look at the national and the state, look at the county. And I really commend my fellow Chair Chavez in regards to doing that hard work, because it's really difficult to find information in regards to nonpartisan offices. For better or for worse, lost some sleep because I really wanted to see that interview, because it has been very difficult to find information about any of the offices or candidates. So thank you very much, Chair Chavez, for that. And I'm sure there's other important formal and informal sources to gather information, and please do your due diligence. Also, I'd just like the Planning Commission to know that I'm now the acting chair of the East Village Neighborhood Council. So I don't think it will affect anything, but in regards to the Planning Commission, but I'll talk to Mr. Rozelle, council, in regards to if the Neighborhood Council makes a decision, if that affects anything that comes back up to the Planning Commission. Thank you very much, Chair Chavez. That's all.
Thank you. Any additional business from the commission? Seeing and hearing none, we'll move to our next item, community development staff updates. Mr. Colwitz.
Yes, Chair Chavez. So 2 actions occurred with the City Council on Tuesday, March 15th, that I wanted to talk to you about. No other actions have actually happened with any other sort of public body since we last met February 24th. So it's been a nice reprieve, if you will, for all of us. But specifically on Tuesday night, 2 actions occurred. One was the City Council formally adopted a resolution to approve the Starbucks drive-through project on Vineyard and River Park, overturning the Planning Commission denial. That was anticipated. You'll all recall at their prior meeting, they gave city staff direction to come back with the formal documents to carry that out. So that happened on Tuesday night. The other item that was on their calendar was the River Park specific plan, development agreement amendment, and the 4 properties development agreement amendment. And that one was a very lengthy conversation. And one of the things that I will point out to the full of the Planning Commission is the discussion that we went into with the City Council from the staff report perspective, identified a couple of different things. One, it talked about the Planning Commission recommendation that was provided to them. And then it gave, in what I will say, in a very straightforward manner to all of you, is an unusual thing where we actually had other options out there. So I wanted to acknowledge that. And it dealt with policy issues, if you will. The general plan, housing element policy that they've put forward, as well as project labor agreements, and that city staff had not received direction from council on what to do with project labor agreements one way or another. What came out of the meeting essentially was, let's say, two high-level actions to quickly summarize, and if there are questions, then we're here for you as well. Council at a very high level said that let's go ahead and talk about project labor agreements on a citywide basis at a future item, but not involve it with a project-specific request that was before them. I don't have a date for when that discussion is going to happen, but that would be a future thing coming back at some point in time. So that left the project itself and what should we do essentially on the table for the city council to discuss. And city council followed essentially the applicant's original request, which was to approve the specific plan amendment to allow residential development in the 3 different districts, B, C, and D, which would allow for the full 1,025 units to be developed out there, consistent with what the housing element had identified. And when they engaged with each other as well as the developer about making an amendment to both of the development agreements, what ultimately was concluded was that there was going to be a 35% local hire provision added to both development agreements. And that was agreed upon by the developers at the meeting. And with that, the city council went ahead and approved that item. Being ordinance amendments, technically we have one more meeting to come back to. So we're forecasting to come back on April 5th for the second reading of the ordinance to occur. And then after that, those would be the new rules in place 30 days after April 5th. So that's probably the fullest explanation I could give to all of you in the fewest amount of words. So with that, if there are questions, we're here.
Commissioner Dr. Lopez.
I had a question, not necessarily about the items you just spoke about, but about the cannabis licenses. I know that we went through a very robust and very tight schedule, approved all of the ones ultimately that came to us, and I'm very excited about them hopefully in the near future coming online and bringing additional tax revenue so that hopefully we can begin to invest in other projects throughout the city. But there was one applicant who just did not meet their established deadline of March 30 or February, was it March 31st?
By March 1st.
Oh, March 1st
Yeah.
was the date. So I was just wondering, I don't know if this was, decided at the onset, what would happen with that, if that happened with an applicant, what would happen with that one available in this case license, and if council had decided how they would go about handling a situation like the one where we find ourselves in.
I'm happy to address that issue. When the city manager sent out the letter on March 1st of last year, awarding the 16 permits, or actually giving those applicants the ability to apply for the permits, there's indicated that they had to have an SUP in place within a year. And so at that point in time, that set out the parameters that if you didn't meet those guidelines, you would be out of the process. About a month after the letter was sent out, some of the unsuccessful applicants who were very close to getting, based on points, an invitation to apply, they sought clarification about what would happen if one or more of the people that were chosen, the applicants that were chosen to go forward, stumbled and fell and did not make it past the line. So at the direction of the city manager, an email was sent out indicating that they would pull from the list. So in essence, if one or more of the applicants did not make it, you would look at the next highest point getter and invite them to apply and go forward. So after Oxnard did not get their act together and was able to apply, the city invited Legendary to go ahead and apply. So that went out. They have their invitation. They have 6 months in which to have the hearing before the planning commission, not the 12 months, but 6 months. So they know they're on a tighter time frame because either they're going to get it going or, we will look at other options.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Any additional questions for Mr. Colwitz? Nope. All right, since there is no further business before the commission, and if there's no objection to adjournment, we will be adjourning to our next regular meeting for Thursday, April 7th, 2022 at 6 p.m. in the council chambers. As always, commission, staff, public, thank you for your participation. Thank you for your hard work. Stay safe and have a great night. Thank you.
Thank you all. Take care.
Thanks, everyone.
Take care.
See you here next time.